Maximizing the value of your home is something everyone wants, whether you're a real estate developer looking to make more money or a family who wants to enjoy their home and sell it later. There are so many benefits in knowing how to increase your property's value. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some of the key ways to do just that. I'll give you different options ranging from relatively easy and low cost, but will give you the highest returns, to some of the more advanced options that require some more time and a bit more money. I'll also tell you what I've done, how I've done it, and also some of the mistakes I've made so that you can avoid them. Okay, let's get into it. First, let's zoom out and start with some of the things you need to know before buying. There is a saying that is, you make your money when you buy. And this is especially important if you're not looking to own the property for very long, or if it's purely an investment project. You ideally want to buy at below what the existing market value for that property is. Now, this is easier said than done. But what it means is that, say if you're buying a 3-bed semi-detached, you will know what that property is worth, ballpark, by researching what other similar 3-beds are going for in that area and on that road. So with all things taken into account, like the square foot, the finish, the spec, etc., there'll be a typical market value for that property today. And your aim is to buy it below that typical market value. So ways you could do this, for example, is if the person who is selling is a motivated seller. They want to get out quickly for whatever personal reason that they have. Another way is if it's a distressed property. So it's in a bad state, it requires a lot of work, it's unmortgageable, which means a bank won't be able to lend you a mortgage on it, and that consequently reduces the demand for it and reduces the value for it today. So when you're taking all of this into account, you need to think about the ceiling price. So if this is a short-term project, say less than 12 months, you need to know what that ceiling price is. What is the maximum, in this case for a 3-bed semi-detached house, what is the maximum that one has sold for on that road? It doesn't matter what you do with it. It doesn't matter if you add a cinema room. It doesn't matter if you add a jacuzzi. No house on that street has sold for more than that ceiling price. The difference is essentially what you could think of as your profit. So before we go into ways to increase the value, in times like the current market, there is really no point in doing any works that go above that ceiling price. It will just be a waste of time and money. Now, if you're looking to live in this house for years to come, then buying below market value is nice to have, but given over the long run, most house prices tend to go up over time, you should already get some of that uplift, and the rest of the video is about how to maximize that uplift. So I'm going to start from the easiest to the hardest and give you examples along the way. The first way is maintenance and repairs. This is what is wrong with the property that is preventing it from being rented out or sold at market value. So this is essentially repair kind of stuff. Dodgy windows that need double glazing, an old electric fuse box, outdated wiring, improving the EPC rating. It's all the basic fixes that you can do to get that property at market value. This also includes maintenance and repairs to non-physical things. So for example, there was a property maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, and it was on an auction website. It was a 3-bed flat. And I don't usually recommend flats as an investment because of what I mentioned in this video here. But this was going for really low. The market value in that area for a 3-bed flat was 360,000, and this was going for 250,000. So I did a bit of research, and the reason for this was because it had a 60-year lease, which meant it was unmortgageable. No bank would lend on it. So if you wanted it, you'd either have to buy it in cash or get it through a short-term loan like a bridge finance. So I didn't look into it at the time any further. But then a couple of months later, it came back on that auction website. The same one, by the way, the audacity, and it was marketed at 350,000. So someone picked it up, got the lease extended one way or another, did the bare minimum to fix what was broken, which in this case was the lease that was stopping it from selling at market value. That automatically increased the value, and then they put it back on the market. So this is essentially the quickest and often the cheapest way that can give you a solid return. Next, we have curb appeal. When you walk up to the entrance of the property, what does it look like? What does it look like to potential buyers, and how can you make it more appealing? So I'll put some photos of the first projects that I did in London. The kitchen had a portable hob thing in it, but pretty much nothing else. It wasn't in operational condition. So we did a bit of number one, the repair and fix, but we also did a complete makeover inside, which is the curb appeal. We updated the kitchen units to make it more modern, redid the bathroom, made it higher spec, generally made it more appealing overall. And again, this is all about first impressions. The other thing we did here was staging. So this is about intentionally furnishing your place to make it more appealing. So if you're looking to buy a home for you to live in, you'd probably be willing to pay more for a home that is well decorated and furnished, even though you know you're not going to get the furniture with the property. With staging, so with furniture already placed into the property, even if it's just there to showcase what it will look like if someone was living there, the person buying can imagine what it will feel like, where they'll be hosting dinners, where they'll be snuggling up on their sofa next to a fireplace. They can see it more as a home. And so this is another way to increase the value before you're selling. Then we have a spatial improvement. This is about keeping the four walls of the property in the same place and playing around with the existing layout, the existing envelope of the place. So the way I would go about this is seeing what people want, what is selling in the neighborhood, what is their demand for, and then creating that. So for example, most of the houses in the area have 3 bedrooms, but you speak to the estate agent and she or he has explained that there is a really high demand for 4-bedroom houses in that area, then maybe that's something you want to consider doing. It may be that you have an extra large master bedroom that has 2 windows on either side, and you can put a partition wall in between and split it up and make it into an extra bedroom. Another classic example, if there is a kitchen and a really large living room, you can make an open space kitchen and living room together, combine that, and then create an extra bedroom with the extra space that you have. In another way, so this is a project that I invested in, we combined 2 flats into one. And this is a bit more complicated and it requires getting planning approval for change of use because it's no longer just 2 flats anymore. We're combining it into a house. So what was originally a house years and years and years ago was split up into 2 flats by the previous developer. It was an upstairs flat and a downstairs flat. And what we found was that family homes were really sought after in the neighborhood, more so than just flats. And they're more in demand because there were schools nearby, a lot of young families were moving in. So we combined both of those flats and made it into one single high-spec house. I'll show you the befores and afters again on the screen. And we did the opposite of what you would think would add value. Usually when you split a unit up, so if there's a house and you make it into 2 flats, for example, that would usually increase the value. But for this, we did the opposite, and it was based on the market research I spoke about in the first part of the video. Thinking about what your end goal is and understand the ceiling price for that. We were looking for a ceiling price of a house. So for this project, we did a mixture of 2 and 3. So we did the curb appeal and we also did changing the existing layout. With something like this, it does require more investment and the costs are higher and it takes more time. And as I said, you do have to go into planning for this as well. So that adds a couple of more months into the whole process. What we also did for this project was a little bit of number 4, and that is adding additional floor space. So this includes things like a loft extension, side extension, conservatory. This is my least favorite. It requires a lot of time, a lot of planning, and the extra amount you make isn't really worth it. The margins are very small unless you're doing it combined with some of the other options and making it a new place overall. The only time I'd probably go down this increasing floor space option now is if I'm looking to sell a house that I live in. I'll see if I can get planning approval to add additional space, maybe build out the loft or add a conservatory. And that planning approval alone, the paper document that says, oh yeah, you have the permission to build out and do this if you want, that in itself could increase the value of your home without you having to do any of the works yourself. One thing to note is whilst these options can increase the value of your home, timing as well plays a huge part. If you're selling during a depressed market, that will impact how much you'll get for it, and it may wipe out all your profits purely because of the economy at the time. So I've done a property project where I didn't do much to it at all. It took about 6 months to do up, and the market really boomed during those 6 months. So although I didn't add much value to it, I made a lot more than I expected purely because of that increase in growth. On the other hand, I've done a property where the market dipped 3 to 4 months after I bought it. So that impacted the resale value, and instead, I broke even. I rented it out instead of selling it to make it a cash generating asset and to get some rental income in the interim. And for that, I worked with the local council and as part of their social housing scheme. So I was able to secure a guaranteed rent through them as well. And it did make it worthwhile, but that's also something to consider. So this is another property project. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking to learn more about property, there is another video that I have on whether you should buy or rent and whether it's better to buy a house or a flat. And I'll leave you with that playlist over here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week.